All right, what's happening, people? Welcome back to the Internet Wrestling Podcast. Four Horsemen are back once again. This week, we are going to talk a little controversy, I guess. A little Ferrari. Was he ducking? Was he not? Pretty sure the consensus is probably yes on that. We'll get into consistency in refereeing. I know this is probably a topic that we can talk about any week. And there's been some past weeks where we didn't get into it, where it was probably warranted. App State is definitely a casualty of that. Um, and then we'll get into rivalry week. We've got NC State, Virginia Tech, which has been an ACC rivalry with those teams being at the top. Obviously, Stanford is creeping up in the ACC as well. And Robbie, I'll let you kind of break down how this things can shake out. I know there's a couple different ways that things can shake out in the ACC. And we'll obviously talk Oklahoma State, Iowa, which is something that everybody else is talking about. We'll give some different takes on some matches. We'll give our scores with both of those duels, see who we think is going to win some of the bigger matches or where some of those big turning points are going to happen. Um, and just have some more fun talking wrestling, honestly. I will caveat, I've been tasked with talking less on this show. As one of the commenters pointed out, I talk too
Was it slap
much.
the mat?
It was not Slap the Mess. Slap the Matt
Oh,
loves everything we do. All 19 comments that he leaves, which I love every single one of them. Keep those coming. But I don't even know who this person was, to be completely honest. Apparently I talked too much, and I agree. I rambled a little bit too much last week, so gonna pull in your brilliant minds a lot more this
So
week.
what's happening, people? Welcome back to the
The
Internet.
only other, you getting a little bit of my voice coming through my head. But the other comment in there was a guy saying something about what 10th grader wants to wrestle for a guy that he beat, and I'm like, well, he didn't. Jax Forrest lost 5-4 to Gilman at the Olympic trials, and he just replied no. So I'm like, okay, cool. Looks like we're on the right track there.
no, indeed.
No,
Revisionist history.
indeed. It didn't happen. I swear it didn't happen. The match was rigged. The match was rigged. Um, anyway, let's get into some talk about Ferrari. AJ, that is. We'll talk about another one later. But AJ Ferrari does not weigh in against Stephen Little last week. But he seems to have gotten over whatever was ailing him as he's ready to wrestle in these two final duels and get into conference weekend. I saw somebody screenshot I think it was his Instagram post and put that on Twitter today. Um, but how'd you guys feel about that? I think there were a couple of other matches where guys did not wrestle against some other competition last week as
Maryland.
well. Yeah, in the Maryland duel. Obviously, we've all been on record saying we can't stand this, but this was something that everyone was pretty excited about because Ferrari hadn't wrestled anyone that was even close to being near his ranking all year. Um, and the chance he does get to wrestle Stephen Little, a guy that is a returning All American, he doesn't even weigh in after saying, he'll wrestle basically anybody, anywhere, anytime, all the different emojis and whatever else that he puts in all of his posts and anything else on social media. And then he's nowhere to be found with just duck emojis in tow. So how did you guys feel when the news hit that AJ Ferrari did not weigh in for this? What was it? The second chance he had against top competition this entire season,
Yep.
and decided to just forego this entire duel. So, Robbie, I know you probably have plenty to say about this one, and bring in the other one too, and from Maryland as well, if you would like to. Um, but yeah, how did you feel about guys missing duels last week?
It's unfortunate that it's not surprising. I think the only thing that would have made me feel okay about AJ ducking is if he would have just tweeted out a bunch of ducks and smoke signals and emojis. But like I don't know, it's really frustrating to continue to be in this position where you have a guy who says he'll face anybody anytime, anywhere, and that's kind of been his shtick that he's not afraid of anybody. But he has two opportunities to face the top guys in the country, doesn't go to CKLB. Okay, maybe he was injured. We can write that off, right? But we don't have any evidence of any injury here. But he's ducking the top 10 guy for the second time this year that he's had the opportunity. And if you look at his schedule, the hardest match he's had so far this year is opening weekend when he faced Nick Stemmet, and Nick Stemmet's ranked 15th in the country right now. Now he's had a decent year, but he's not a top 10 guy. And I mean, there was emojis on the line there, and that was important. So he wrestled that match. But how do we how do we continue to feel excuse me, that he should be a top ranked guy when he's not putting anything on the line and not facing any competition when he has a chance?
Agreed. He's kind of propped up by, I mean, it sucks to say it this way because he is an NCAA champion, but he's kind of propped up by something that he did years ago. Same thing can be said about Gable Steveson. However,
But
in that
Gable's
weight,
destroying everyone.
exactly in his
Wrestling
weight
top 10.
class,
Yeah.
he is wrestling top 10 guys. He is wrestling guys that are ranked near him and destroying them, right? He may have taken off a good chunk of the first half of the season, but he's been all in when Big Ten dual meet season hit. So while the argument can be said for both guys, Gable is far and away better than everybody in the weight class, and that has shown. Whereas Ferrari, not so much. Kevin, your thoughts?
I mean, yeah, it's just a bummer. It's a bummer. I think that even for the people that would like to give him the benefit of the doubt, in some of these situations, whether it's on or off the mat, like he's not giving them much ammunition with which to do that. No pun intended. So
That was a different Oklahoma State guy.
yeah, so there's some issues there. Now at the end of the day, I think the other thing that we haven't brought up yet is just that, like, and I think they said it last week, is that these 197s in the Big Ten are battling each other. They're getting after it. And those are three of the top guys, and they're going to run into each other at the, Big Ten tournament. And they're going to, not to mention what they've already done so far in the regular season. And it just sucks if they end up getting a lower seed at NCAA's because they split losses or whatever, and then you've got a guy like Ferrari sliding in there with not really much great competition and being rewarded for it. But I guess we'll kind of see how that unfolds as it does. But that's kind of the nightmare, right? Is that you've got these guys who have all battled against each other, have some really, really big wins on the season, and then might show up as a 2 or 3 seed because of a bad conference tournament or something like that. So,
Yeah, and
but
what happens? What happens when they get to the Pac-12 tournament? Does he do the same thing? I don't
no,
know.
I don't imagine he would. I think he'll wrestle that.
I
Yeah,
mean,
but why?
realistically, he's going to need a title there to have any sort of a resume because realistically, they can't take into account previous NCAA finishes with current seeding, especially when they're 3 years ago. So, it's one thing for a guy to be a returning NCAA champ. It's another thing for a guy to have been a champ 3 years ago and then taken 2 years off. And now he's back and hasn't faced any competition. We continue to give him the benefit of the doubt and weigh those accomplishments that he's had before. But for NCAA seeding, he's going to need current results. So he's going to have to get that.
Yeah, he's going to have to, and ultimately, if he ends up winning the Pac-12, like he will have to go through one of either Stephen Little or Trey Munoz probably, and then either of those wins are going to be solid wins. But it's just tough, man. It's tough. There's a lot to unpack usually with this dude, and I continue to hear good things, but it's just disappointing. I wish we had gotten the match. We'll eventually get it at the Pac-12 championships, I believe. But man, that's tough.
Yeah. Austin, your thoughts?
Yeah, it's also just it's not going to be good for him in the long run, right? Like you guys mentioned, Big Ten guys are battling each other. They're in these battles where they had to dig deep and find a way to win. Um, Ferrari hasn't been in that situation in how long? 2, 3 years now, right? So Yeah, you could simulate that in practice with your practice partners, but we all know that's not the same, right? When the pressure's on, round of 16, quarterfinal match at NCAAs, you're going to have to be in that simulation, kind of live that experience already recently this year. And he needed a match like that now. Hopefully he gets one like that at Pac-12s, at conferences to kind of get that back. But yeah, I think the more better in those kind of situations for a guy like Ferrari at this point.
Well, and especially the guy like Ferrari, because nobody here has said anything about his athletic ability, his physical style, anything like that, because that's pretty well documented, right?
Yeah.
But
Not
you
his
want
bench
to
press depth though.
not the depth on that was a little suspect, but a guy like that, you need him to go through the mental warfare. You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
in between the ears has been the issue with him kind of losing it. Whether it was the stuff last year with Glazier or just off the mat stuff. It's like if you'd kind of want to put that guy in a situation where he's got to dig deep and figure it out and not melt down. But that's kind of the fear too. Is do you want to put that guy in that situation a lot and give him a
Yeah.
chance to figure it out, or do you just
Good
want to
point.
avoid it at all costs?
Yeah, I think he has to go through both Munoz and Little at Pac-12s because I'm pretty sure Little was the returning champ. They're not going to go off
Yep.
of the national rankings. They're going to go off of, at least most recent history. The returning
Valid point.
champ, if Little maintains being undefeated in the Pac-12, he's going to be the top seed. That means that Munoz and Ferrari are 2-3, whichever way you want to put them, and they'll see each other in the semis.
Mm.
So he's going to most likely have to see both of them at the Pac-12 tournament, right? And I don't, for me, I don't see an incentive for him to wrestle in the finals. I mean, I think he will, right? But like, if the incentive is to get to the NCAA tournament and that's all he's worried about, and he wasn't worried about a match with Stephen Little because it could have, if you think about it, him wrestling Stephen Little this past weekend, or last weekend and winning gives him a easier run for a Pac-12 title, where then it would flip things and it would be Little and Munoz that would be 2-3, right? And now that's not the case, where he kind of solidified himself of being a potentially the 3 seed if they're going off of last year's, bringing in last year's results and how things have gone. So, and I mean, the only thing with Munoz is that I don't know, I don't, has he wrestled recently?
Yeah, he
I think
wrestled last week.
did he wrestle last week?
He
Yeah.
just came back. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like for him, he's coming off of an injury and everything else. So it is a little bit different for him, right? But like I just don't see the incentive for him to do it, right? We've seen how many guys at Big Tens just be like, nah, I'm good, and injury default out. Well, I mean, they were obviously legit injured. I mean, think Nolf, think Starachi, think Spencer. We've seen these guys do it before, and they're legit injured, and they just kind of take whatever comes their way. Obviously, Carter Sarachi, I think, is the first of any of those guys where it became, or no, I think Nolf had a loss that it kind of changed his seat a little bit because it was what multiple injury defaults that I think he had to take.
Mhm.
Yeah, when they each
Um,
counted for a loss.
yeah. So, but no, I think that ultimately things like this are bad for the sport and they're bad for the conference because you don't, it's not like you're coming from the Big Ten where there are absolute dogs. I mean, the top 3 guys in the weight class are all from the Big Ten, right? Like you have
Yeah.
2 other guys in your entire weight class that are legitimate like contenders to be all Americans, right? So, man, it's terrible for the sport, it's terrible for the conference, just and it's not a good look for him either. So like after being a guy that says he's going to show up and boasting the deadlift and this on social media and really showcasing the ego to just not even weigh in, just crazy, just absolutely crazy to me. I don't get it, and it's kind of surprising that it was like even even a thought to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I,
Yeah, you
I
take
was bummed. No, I mean, this isn't quite exactly the same thing, but I was bummed with Maryland and Purdue with Ethen Miller not wrestling. And again, I don't know if there's an injury situation there. He's been competing and he's looked good
Hmm.
all year. I mean, he's undefeated.
I feel like I was
Yeah.
more frustrated by that one.
Yeah, I mean, that was going to be an awesome match. That was going to be an awesome match. It legitimately could have, I mean, mathematically, it would have changed it from let's say hypothetically, Ethen, beats Blaze again, because he did beat him at the Tiger Style invite. That would have made it 18-17 team score with Purdue still winning, assuming everything else happened the same. But still, just a bummer. Would have been a really, really awesome match. But again, they'll run into each other at Big Tens in some way, shape, or form.
I think the reason I didn't like it is because it looks like it's just to protect the seed. It doesn't look like it's for anything else. Like Ferrari's been ducking stuff all year, so it's not not out of character. But Ethen has wrestled the top competition, but
Mhm.
as soon as he gets that huge win last week over Kasich with the medical default, like Willie hit on it when he's talking about it. Like he called that he was going to duck it, and he did, because now he's undefeated in conference. He's undefeated overall. He has a really great shot at the top seed after that win over Kasich, and it feels like he's protecting that. It doesn't feel like he's out for legitimate reasons, and maybe he is. I don't know, but
The fact that you
certainly doesn't
can
feel that way.
The fact that you can call stuff like that though is ridiculous. Like we should not. It's so funny because we're obviously going to talk Oklahoma State and Iowa, and the 1998 match has been kind of circulating around a little bit, and people are talking about Iowa Oklahoma State from back then. When you look down that entire, like, both rosters, just like hammer on hammer. And there was never, ever a doubt that those guys were going to show up. There's not a doubt that any of the guys are they're not going to show up this weekend, right? Like Oklahoma State and
Mhm.
I were wrestling, your ones are going, right? But like anytime that you got the chance to wrestle tough competition, you're like, all right, we're doing it, right? I watched, what was it, Spencer Lee's interview where he's talking about how he wants to continue to compete and compete as much as possible because it's going to make him better. And he was like, now you have guys that are asking for crazy amounts of money, and it's hard for us to get a USA versus Russia when back in the day it was like, hey, we're going to go here and wrestle these guys. And everybody was like, all right, grab your shoes and let's go. Now we literally know that guys aren't going to wrestle certain matches if they're in certain situations to protect their seed and get an easier time. What happened to tough wrestling? What happened to us being, gladiators and, the toughest guys in the sport and toughest guys around, right? Like, remember when the Olympics was going to cut wrestling and we're like, can't cut wrestling. We're the first ever Olympic sport. We're the toughest around. Remember
I
the
think
Coliseum, all this stuff? Now it's gone.
I think that this just answered our debate from last week around, if old school dudes were tougher than the guys now. And I think, yeah, it just gets to the point. It's like, yeah, if there's a tough match, you're wrestling it like every time. And again, you'd go out there with your leg taped up from, your toes to your hip and just try not to let them touch that leg, like, but, yeah, that was just a real bummer because it looks like exactly that, and I'm sure that, it's not like he's been ducking competition all year. He's 19-0. He's been wrestling tournaments. He's been wrestling duels. Maybe it just is what it is. But that was just one where I was pretty surprised because that was, especially for that duel, like that was not many of the matches had like good, ranked guys matching up. So I was like really pumped for that one, but didn't happen.
Yeah. And this kind of like, it brings our other conversation full circle, right? Where we aren't privy to injury reports. So, everybody, anyone that gets any sort of information, it's all secretive, right? It's a text message here, it's a DM here on Twitter, right? And like then somebody leaks it and somebody wants to talk about it because people want to be a lot more out in the open, and people just want to be a little bit more messy these days as well and just be the guy that's putting the news out there, right? But like the everything is just like steeped in illusion these days, where when you're getting some sort of intel, it's hey, don't tell anybody that I'm telling you this, but this is what's happening, right? Like this guy's now out or whatever else. It's like if we had true injury reports and what's ultimately going to what could potentially make that happen is sports betting
Betting
because that
lines. Yeah.
betting
Mhm.
lines is going to do that. But like we're sitting here and both of these guys could have legitimate reasons for why they did not wrestle last week. Could be have some sort of nagging injury. Oh, he was having muscle spasms that day. Oh, the flu was going around. He didn't feel well. Whatever. Legit reasons. But we're sitting here and we're like, you know, there's not much to tell. There's not much out there. And if there is much to tell, it's not circulating as much as it would as if there was an injury, right? Like there are coaches that tell us about injuries and we're not supposed to put them out because they want to have some sort of leg up on the competition. It's like, guys, if you're injured, it's not like you can be hidden. There's
Mhm.
one versus one. There's not 11 guys on offense and 11 guys on defense. This isn't football, right? Like we can't just hide an injured player and use him as a decoy in wrestling. So like the cloak and dagger that we have to operate under is ridiculous, especially in these situations where it's just like if we had true injury reports, then we would come out and say, you know what, Ethen Miller, it sucks that he missed last week, but he got banged up during practice during the week. He twisted his knee. He was out for such and such reasons. We don't get those things, right? And coaches don't feel entitled to even tell us those things. They would much rather us speculate. And then when we speculate, they want to get mad at us for speculating. And then they want to send us text messages and DMs being pissed off.
And what's tough though is like we know how brutal the sport this is. We know that realistically, at this point in the season, if we had an injury list, 3/4 of your lineup is probably going to be on there in some fashion or another, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
it's just whether, how taped up are they at this point and are they going to go or not? That's the biggest question. Like we know people are dinged up. We know there's a lot of nasty viruses and stuff going around right now. So there's a lot of guys who are sick and it's legit. But like having that knowledge ahead of time can completely change the complexion of a duel. And I think it's fair to want to know that as a fan.
But would having an injury report make much of a difference? Because like you said, Willie called that Miller was going to miss that match days ahead of time. Why can't Maryland just say, "Oh, he hurt his knee"? Did he actually hurt his knee, or are they just going through that process because they have to? It's just playing devil's advocate here, but would it change much? I don't really know if it would.
Like when Tim Duncan was listed on the injury report as old. That was it. Out. Old.
I
Like
feel
seventh
that.
year seniors
I
will
feel
have that.
right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how much of a difference it would change, but with the what ultimately changed it in the professional ranks is money. And
Mhm.
we're starting to see, like I said, more betting lines going around. There's going to be more with NIL, there's going to be more with rev share where it basically is pay for play in these next coming years. So you can add, and I'm sure you're going to be able to add incentive at some point. So, if money is one of those things, let it talk the way that it does because it sure as hell talks in the off season. It sure as hell talks during recruiting season. So let it talk during competition season, right? And so an injury report would go a long way in my eyes because it brings these things to light. It lets people know, especially if a guy has been on the injury report for multiple weeks, right? He's dinged up and he's been dinged up for the greater part of the season, right? We're gonna sit him here. We're gonna see how he looks here. We're gonna give him these duels or send him here for these matches to test things out. Here's what the plan is. But everybody wants to be so secretive about their plans, like they've got some secret sauce to success. And they're really, I mean, I'm sure if you talk to any top level wrestler, it's like, no, we just put in the work, guys. Like as much as you want to think that, Kale has a voodoo doll, like they're putting in the work. They
Maybe that
may
is the secret.
I mean, they may be approaching it differently, but like, let's call it what it is, right? Like, it's, it's just what they do. These guys are good. And so I would love to see like an injury report. But again, I think that what changes that is ultimately money. That's just my thought.
I'm just picturing Gale like the kid in Indiana Jones in the Temple of Doom, where he's just stabbing Indiana Jones in the back.
That lady during the Super Bowl with the Mahomes one.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, that's right.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Green, who that was.
It seemed to work. It definitely
Yeah,
seemed
yeah,
to
yeah.
work. So I don't know. Who knows? Um, let's the other controversial thing to happen last week. We I think we went what, like maybe 1 or 2 weeks without like some top level
Super atrocious
bullshit.
officiating.
And then it was just like, nah, back on our bullshit. And you
Return to the
know,
mean.
yeah, like we talked about before. This was a couple weeks ago. Robbie, you were, in our group, we were talking about how things went with that App State duel, which was absolutely horrendous.
Still
Um,
makes my brain hurt.
yeah, none of the none of the calls this past week were on that level, but it was different where it wasn't bad. It wasn't, yes, it was bad officiating, but it wasn't like bad officiating to in the sense of like not being able to control the match. At App State, it was out of control, and those referees just
They were
lost
in over their head and
everything
didn't know what to do.
Mhm.
completely. No, like there were too many reviews. There was bricks being thrown, bricks given back. We're gonna look at this.
Reviews
We're gonna
of
look at that.
reviews.
Yeah, like it was just absolutely batshit crazy. This weekend, it was back to the old inconsistency, and the consensus was that, and this is from tweets from Chuck Barbie, that coaches need to adjust. And it's like, well, adjust to what? Like, there's not a
To
rule
every different
set.
official.
Yeah, like there's not a rule set that they can adjust to because there is no consistency. Um, First of all, let's look at the Sealy takedown. Did you guys think that it was a takedown? And then what are your thoughts on the inconsistency of the call or the fact that it was called a takedown and then they watched it for however long and changed it? What were your thoughts on that?
That was the surprising part to me is that they waved it off. Like, how can you look at that after calling it a takedown and then say, nah, it really wasn't. We're going to give him 27 seconds of reaction time to see if he can bounce off that hip and jump back up. That was, I don't know. It's crazy. The fact that you have a multitude of top Division 1 coaches who are publicly saying we don't know what a takedown is. We don't know how officials are going to call this. We
Mm-hmm.
don't know what reaction time is. Like it's different every match and every official and every duel. We need consistency. And that's what was, kind of put out this week. And that the backlash was, well, no, you guys just need to adjust to our inconsistency. That doesn't make any damn sense.
The tough thing for me, because like I know that these officials have like calls that they're on, and like they're looking at these calls and they're looking at mistakes and they're talking through what should have happened and where they're doing some like continuous improvement efforts during the weeks, and they're not doing this because they like screwing it up, like, and I get it's bang bang and there's a lot of stuff, but it does absolutely seem like there needs to be some more clear, definitive. This is a takedown. Reaction time is going to be, something like some definitive response. We're going to give them a second or a count in our head or something like that. Um, I always said too, like it's a bummer we've got these out of bounds rules and we've got these, hanging on the ankle, 5 count stuff, because it's like that used to just be stalling and officials used to call it. And that was just how it was. That's how you managed it, by the official taking control of the match. Um, and it just seems like it's gotten so confusing,
Convoluted.
Yeah, very, very convoluted. And again, my dad used to say all the time, so many of the world's problems were intended to be solutions. And we're adding all these new wrinkles into the rule and new phrases and reaction time and all this stuff. And it's just messing it up and making it that much more difficult to get a correct call from. And for the wrestlers to know what to expect and the coaches to know what to expect. And conference to conference, it seems to be different. So it's tough.
which is going to be fun come NCAAs when you have
Oh,
the
yeah.
conglomeration of all of them coming together and nobody knowing what the hell's going to go on.
Oh, and no, NCAA's never had any weird calls or
None.
issues.
Nope. None.
I can think
Never.
of like three off the top of my head just from last
Aiello's
year.
back points. Can we talk about that?
There, well,
Son of a bitch.
there was Fix and Ragusin. There was the chaos that was the Von Bauer Edmonds match where the score changed a ton of times. I know
I mean,
that's
just insert an Oklahoma State singlet anywhere.
yeah.
Oh
Like
yeah.
let's I mean, how many rules have been made for like Oklahoma State guys? I mean, you got Jo in his takedown on Stieber, right? That changed things. You got Dean Heil. I mean, now we have a what is it?
Danger
Neutral
rule.
danger rule
Mhm.
because of Dean Heil, right? So like there's so
The,
many different things. I mean, Chris Perry
the side headlock. Yep.
and his side headlock. Like insert insert an Oklahoma State past champion and you will see a rule that remedies a situation that they either exploited or didn't or weren't able to gain something from.
Mhm.
But the thing that got me, and I'm looking at a couple of tweets, and the first one is from Chuck Barbie, where he and at all times he puts the onus on the wrestlers, right? Like, and let's call it what it is. The wrestlers don't award themselves points. They don't. As we saw when Buzakis had Davis on his back and they called it a 2-2 and then they wiped it away and just said it was two. Like it was just wild, right? Like it just didn't make any sense. And in every situation, he's putting the onus on the wrestlers to make it finite, where it's like I understand you have to make you have to show that you are in control, right? But if you continue to add different nuance to what control is, it can't be policed correctly. It's just impossible. And I mean, the tweet that I'm looking at right now, Barbie says, as I noted in a recent tweet, the top coaches will make the needed adjustments. And then he quotes Kale in saying, sometimes they go your way, sometimes they don't. Yes, correct. Sometimes things go your way, sometimes they don't. However,
Sometimes you feel like a nut. Sometimes you don't.
Yeah.
yeah, it's to be the only consistency that we have is inconsistency in these situations,
Got to know
you
when to
know,
hold them, when to
and
fold
and
them.
and that's the thing is like it just doesn't make any sense. And then the person that I was following more in this situation was Mark Branch, who was really outspoken. And I
I
want to
love
get your
Mark Bridge.
He's the
yeah, and
best.
I want to get your guys' thoughts on two of the tweets that he put out, and he says not trying to fan the flames, but adjust to what there. That's the issue, in my opinion. It feels there is a variance of interpretation to point to a point where most well-versed wrestling minds are not sure what a takedown is anymore. It would be nice to have a reaction time defined more clearly. That's the first one. What are your guys' thoughts on how Branch is interpreting this as a high level coach of wrestling who has done, I'm pretty sure, some pretty significant shit in this sport?
Yeah.
I agree with them
Uh,
100%. Like
yeah.
how do wrestlers adjust when they don't know what is changing?
Yeah. They
Um,
don't know what a takedown is. They don't know what stalling is. Like, what are you supposed to adjust to?
yeah,
The whims of whatever official you have?
and like I'm pretty sure we all know here, but I don't know if the people at home know, like every now and then, kind of to what Kevin's point was, the refs are getting emphasis points like, hey, here's how we're scoring this. They're giving video evidence to all these refs. Um, but is that going out to the coaches? Is that going out to media personnel? Is that going out to just, is that public at all? Because I was doing one of the matches at Penn, talking to one of the coaches from the visiting teams before the match. Ref comes up. coach goes, "Hey ref, anything new for us?" He's like, "Well, yeah, they're emphasizing stalling on top. Once you get your riding time point, fine, but I'm going to start nailing for stalling more." And coach was like, "Oh, I'm glad I asked." So like to that point, and maybe it didn't happen exactly like that. I don't want to throw this ref under the bus, but that's the kind of thing I'm talking about here. Like, where's the transparency? Like, where is this? Hey, here's what we're emphasizing this week. Here's what, some of these interpretations might be different once we kind of work out these tweaks.
Well, and at the end of the day, too, it's really hard for the officials. I will make that. I will lean into that piece
100%.
of
I
it,
don't
right?
want their job at all. It's tough.
For
No,
sure.
no.
Hard pass.
But like similarly, I was calling Michigan and Columbia earlier this year with Miles Amin, and he's pretty educated on the sport, and neither
He
of
doesn't
us
know
could
anything. What are you talking
remember.
about?
Neither of us could remember like how the takedown reaction time rules were changed. Like
Mhm.
they're like, I don't know, I don't remember. I know they took it away and then they added it back, and now it's something. I don't care.
Yeah,
It's just it's yeah. When they keep changing it up on us.
It's
I
funny you say
was
that too, because I was talking about reaction time, whether it's neutral, takedown, or just from their feet behind, locking hands, whatever it was. One coach texted me and goes, "Hey, that's not the rule here. Here's the actual rule." And it's like, oh, it's the same position, just whether you're neutral or on bottom, it
Mhm.
changes reaction. It's,
Yep. A
it does
reversal
make
versus a
sense, but
takedown too.
it's
And
just
yeah,
hard to keep
it's
all that in your head. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I got when I was calling the matches in Nashville, there was a certain situation that I was unclear on. And I want to look it up, but like I got a I got an email from a referee and I want to excuse me, I'll look it up while we're talking about it because I want to give this man props because he sent me an email and he's a referee and he completely broke down the entire situation for me. And he was like, here's what you had said. He's like, here's the interpretation, here's some clarification so that next time. And I was like, this is awesome. Like, please, at any point, if I'm on, if it's on this show or if I'm doing commentary, send me the clarification
yeah.
because as commentary people and as just like people that do this, as people that are sitting here talking right now, we want clarification on these things. We want to be able to tell the masses who are listening and watching what the hell is going on, and that's what I used to try and do when I was doing Princeton's matches when I was back on the East Coast is like, okay, there's a challenge here. What's going on with the challenge? What are the coaches asking for? What are the referees looking at? Because obviously the challenge table is literally right next to you as a commentator. You can see the video, you can see everything. So you can give them the insight of what's truly happening, right? So that was always like the biggest thing for me is like trying to interpret these rules and then trying to delegate or at least like explain these things to the people that are watching what the hell's going on. And that's like the hardest part, right? But continue. I'm gonna look up this email from whoever I want to give this man props of who it was, but continue on Branch's point as I look this up. What are some of your other thoughts on how Branch is interpreting what these rules are and how there's these points of emphasis that nobody knows about each week?
Well, I think it's telling that there's so many different coaches from different conferences saying the exact same thing. Like there should be a consensus of what reaction time is. And we know like we can't say, oh, it's going to be 1.32 seconds. Like there can't be like a fixed time, but we have to have a consensus on what it actually is and not, well, it's different for this guy. It's different at heavyweight than it is at 125 because they're smaller and faster and they react fast. Like it doesn't matter. Like we need to have consistency, and that's what we're looking for. And Branch, I think he's really embraced the cowboy nature, both from Oklahoma State and in Wyoming, and just he really shoots from the hip. He's a very straightforward guy. He's not going to hold anything back, and he wants accountability too. And based off what you just said, Holmes, I think the coaches just want explanation. They want to understand too, and and that's something I would like to see more of in a review situation is when there is a change or not a change in a call, like explain it, not just say, well, I didn't see it, which is what we get a lot of the time, or just said, nope, not a takedown. Like walk us through a little bit, like give us, 15 words on why it wasn't. Explain something about it that we're seeing so we all have a better understanding.
Agreed. I actually found the email. The referee is his name is Josh Smith. Um,
Well, that's a playing
Pittsburgh
name. That's not a
Pitts,
real
Oh,
name.
Sounds
he
fake.
Pittsburgh official.
dunked real hard.
Yeah.
For the Hawks.
Pittsburgh official. It was during the Ohio State and Iowa match, and I was talking about injury time, and I had thought that after injury time, the other guy gets choice, and he's like, "Here's why it wasn't that situation because it was concussion protocol and this that whatever." So he kind of gave me the kind of it's a good size email too on like everything, the rules interpretation. He even included a attachment of the video of my commentary explaining it too. So like stuff like that is awesome. If there are referees that watch this show, and I was actually invited onto a referee podcast. Rick Solowski actually invited me on to. Well, I didn't get like a true invite. He said he wants me on at some point, but
They
I
have podcasts. They don't just hide.
they do. He has a referees podcast.
I'll be
I cannot remember what it is called, but yes, there is a referees podcast, and Rich has always been a good guy, and I've known him for a ton of years. I think he even ref some of our matches in Dishes 11 Austin,
Yeah.
back in the day. So always been great. So like they are talking about some of these things. They are talking about like life, as a referee and the interpretations, different things, but like it's it's tough for us as well as coaches and wrestlers to adjust to these things to try to educate wrestling fans when the people that have the highest wrestling IQs in the business don't even have the insight. And that's the hard part, right? And this is Branch's other tweet. He's like, it's hard to adjust to the unknown. I think wrestlers are adjusting. They're trying to lock down finishes, but that means discontinuing wrestling and just trying to hold the position, which also allows their opponent to change the position, the angle, or sneak out of position, right? So like with trying to hold something, something else is going to happen, and it then falls into a new set of reaction time. And it just doesn't, there's no concrete way of truly looking at it. And that's really the issue. And I mean, the Braden Davis one, I was like, I can't believe that they changed that. And then the Sealy one, I was like, he strong armed the shit out of him. He throws him to a hip. Like, there's no fight in any of this. Like that Wizard, the most shallow thing I've ever seen, and he's just allowing this to continue. It just didn't make any sense to me. What are your guys' final thoughts on referee consistency? What you would like to see change when it comes to refereeing, and how we can make it better?
I think we should have robots officiate. No, kidding.
AI.
Yeah, AI. No, this has got to be the hardest sport in the world to officiate. And I just
Right.
on that last point you said there, it's like, yeah, if you got a single leg and you're just trying to collect that other leg, on the edge of the mat just to get the two, and now all of a sudden they can throw that whizzer in or they can adjust. I mean, it's got to be completely insane, even with two officials sometimes, to get different angles and to get things done. I mean, that's how damn hard this is. You can't just have one person do it at this level. I think that if at the end of the day, I think they're just going to have to change the takedowns, and it's going to have to just be like, look, if I can make the judgment call that says you have control of this person, whether there's a whizzer in or not, or whether the circumstances are like, because the whizzer is bullshit. Like that shouldn't stop a takedown at this point. Like,
What about a wizard?
wizards can stop. They've got magic. But I mean, there's going to have to be a dramatic change because these guys are so good at this level to be able to stop so much stuff. I mean, even at what was that high school match with Suriano and Dayton Fix that went over a half hour?
That was an
Like,
insane match. I'll never forget that one.
right. I mean, like those are the sorts of things where it's like if these guys can't get takedowns, then maybe takedowns are too difficult. Maybe we need to make some adjustments with that. but I don't know.
In that match, there were legit no takedowns until the end of it, though. That I will say.
Yeah, sure. But I'm just saying, like, the point is we have to start opening the door to have other conversations about it, right? Maybe a takedown is too tough to get, or maybe a wizard shouldn't stop a takedown call from happening. Everybody's diving under legs and scrambling around that way. I mean, I like the getting the back exposure and getting the takedown that way, but I don't know. There's got to be better ways to do this.
And
And
like
it's
you
not
said,
all
like
on
you
the
can
officials.
tell a wizard that's stopping you from getting control versus a wizard that's just thrown in and is not stopping control. Like it's you know it when you see it, and that's you can't legislate that, but that's what it is. Like we know just because you're throwing a wizard, it doesn't mean you didn't get taken down. Like I don't know. It's difficult.
Yeah, it's kind of the same situation where guys going behind, but the bottom guy's just really reaching back and barely has a lock on the leg. It's like, yeah, technically, I see why it's not a takedown yet, but what is that really preventing a takedown?
Mm-hmm.
And just to answer your question, Holmes, like we're talking about transparency, that's great. But I think a lot of this could have been avoided if Chuck Barbie just came out and said, "Hey, that ref got it wrong." I think it was a takedown. A majority of us think it's a takedown. We're going to re-implement emphasizing what a takedown is and send that out to all the coaches and whoever else. I think he kind of opened a can of worms. And I get why, he's protecting his refs. I get that. Great. But you got to hold them accountable sometimes too and admit when you're wrong a little bit.
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
humans. They make errors.
Yeah.
That's
And
fine.
if you're
Admit to it and do it better.
if you're afraid
That's
of
what
the
we want.
blowback from that, maybe don't be a ref or, just that's part of the gig. Pay these guys more, get training, whatever it is. But I think they had to be held accountable too when they do make mistakes.
Yeah, call a spade, man. Like if people don't shy away from telling us that we're idiots in the comments, right? Like that's our
Or to my
accountability.
face.
Or right, or send us DMs or whatever else, right? Like we're accountable to the audience that watches this. So I think I think we've had two topics so far, right? And the end result for both the topics we've talked about is we need more transparency. We need, more transparency into wrestler injuries and things like that. So it doesn't sound like it's a backroom deal of what the hell's going on. And we need more transparency of what's being emphasized and how they're calling takedowns. And if you are emphasizing something one week, then they should know about it. It's funny, like the football season just ended, but I remember that first game of the year between the Chiefs and the Ravens where they called so many of the same penalties where they're like, yeah, this is what they're emphasizing this year of a legal formation. And then after like 2 weeks, they were like, yeah, I think we fixed it. It's like you didn't fix it. You just realized that you were ruining the game and you had to fix yourselves. So like
Yep.
if there is a point of emphasis, fix yourselves because there's only so much that the wrestlers can do. There really is only so much that the wrestlers can do. And I'm sorry, but like Chuck Barbie putting it on the wrestlers to make it as clear as day that it's a takedown, it's hard to do. It's
And you're so
really
good at
hard to
this.
do.
Hard to
Mm-hmm.
do. Yeah.
Yeah, like it's not always going to be cut and dry, but you also are there to interpret the rules and enforce the rules and know what you're looking at. And if you don't, then there needs to be some clarity on your end so that there's clarity on our end, both coaches, wrestlers, and media. So, I would love to just see a lot more transparency when it comes to all these things. And that's the bottom line for me is like, give me more, give us more transparency of what it is we're truly seeing. Because I know, my eyes aren't lying to me when I see Sealy break a guy down to his hip and he's got both legs and there's, a hand, not even a full wizard, just a hand kind of hanging in an armpit that's not preventing anything from happening. So
But was it his strong hand?
it had to be. It prevented the takedown.
Yeah, it must have been.
Must have been his strong hand. Well, let's move to some wrestling. Let's start in the ACC. Robbie, I'm going to let you take it away. We've got Virginia Tech and NC State, two teams that have been on the top of the ACC for quite a while and been battling late in the year for that ACC title, as well as at the conference tournament. But there's kind of a weird breakdown in how things can happen with the ACC. So why don't you kind of give us the landscape of that and then get into the NC State versus Virginia Tech match? What are some of the big matches? Where do you see, some of the ebbs and flows during the duel? And, we'll make our picks and say who we think's going to win.
So the ACC is weird for a lot of reasons. We have a West Coast team in the Atlantic Coast Conference now, so that's kind of weird.
It's all coast conference now. That's why.
Oh, there we go. I like it. Um, so for the dual title, it's solely based off a record. Head-to-head matches don't matter. So whatever team has the best record after they've dueled every team in the conference, that's a conference duel champion. So as of right now, NC State is the only undefeated team. So if they win in Blacksburg on Friday, they win outright. If they are to lose to Virginia Tech previously lost to North Carolina in the opening duel. So if Virginia Tech beats NC State, then both of them earn a share of the title, having only one loss.
Mhm.
Then North Carolina still only has one loss because they lost to NC State. So if North Carolina beats Stanford, they also win a share of the title if Virginia Tech beats NC State. So it's yeah, it's a lot. There could be 3 trophies this year, and that's kind of weird. Two of
That's
them could
not
be
how
in
trophies
Blacksburg on
work.
Friday.
That's
It
not
is.
how they
Well,
work.
that's welcome to 2025. Everybody gets a trophy. That's how it
Will they
works now.
will they all get like ACC championship rings too?
Yes, they all get banners too. It's wild. So like I understand like this one would be a clusterfuck if everybody does if Virginia Tech wins and UNC wins. If they were to actually split it based on head-to-head matches, it would still be a 3-way tie because NC State beat UNC, UNC beat Virginia Tech beat NC State. So it'd still be a 3-way head-to-head tie. So this is a weird year for it anyway. So a lot on the line on Friday in Blacksburg. And out of all of the teams that NC State has faced in conference, Virginia Tech matches up with them better than anybody else does. It was a really close duel with NC State and UNC. UNC's been sneaky good this year. They've been in every duel they've had, and they found ways to win, and that's why they have a shot at the dual title this week too. But I don't know. There's going to be some damn good matches on Friday. I'm excited to get down there. So we can walk through it real quick and let's look at who we got. So 125 we'll have Vincent Robinson and Eddie Van Tresca. So number 3 versus number 5. 33 is Kyle Rainey and Connor McGonigal. So 14 versus 13. 141 is up in the air right now for NC State. Tyler Tracy had been wrestling there, but Troy Holman actually bumped up a weight last week and beat a ranked guy from Stanford, Jason Miranda. So one of those two will have Sam Latona, who's number 10 in the country. 149, Caleb Henson, number 1. We got a stall call last week, which is the stupidest shit ever because that man doesn't stall. I've never seen him stall in my life. He will face number 2, Coy Bizgens, who you'll never pronounce that name right if you don't hear it because it doesn't look like Bizgens.
No.
57 is Ed Scott and Rafael Hippolito, 15 and 12. 65 is 28 Derek Fields and Mac Church, who just dropped out of the rankings last week. 74 is 22 Maddie Singleton and number 20 Lennox Wolak. 84 is 14 Dylan Fishback and number 20 TJ Stewart. 97 is 31 Christian Knopp and 16 Andy Smith. And 285 is number 4 Isaac Trumbull and number 13 Jimmy Mullen. So just fire matchups up and down the lineup. I really don't know where they're going to want to start with this one if either team has the choice. Like what would make the most sense to give either of them more momentum, because so many of these matches are a coin flip. So it's going to be a tight match. I mean, I don't really know how it shakes out.
Yeah, I'm looking at WrestleStat right now. They have it 20-13 Virginia Tech, is how they have it. That first match, 125, is going to be crazy. Van Tresca and
Yeah,
Robinson.
both of them are wide open.
Yeah, so I'm hoping for a lot of points in that one.
It's
Um,
probably gonna be a 1-0 ride out,
most likely.
tiebreaker 3.
uh, who do you think? I mean, it is pretty even, but like, who do you think has the edge, and who do you think wins this one?
I think Ventresca has the edge just because he's been through more, because this is Vince's first year as a starter. And he hasn't had the battles that Ventresca has had. Um, coming through the tournament last year and or 2 years ago and earning All-American status. Um, eye test, I think Vincent's looked better this year, but Eddie has looked fantastic lately. So it's 100% a coin flip on this one. Um, I don't even know. I don't have a leaning either way on this one.
Mhm.
Most of the matches that I do, this one I don't.
We do have, what is it, four rematches? One, two, three. Yeah, four matches that have happened at some point during their career.
Mhm.
Um, with the first one being Ed Scott and Hippolito.
That's what I'm looking
And
to.
Yeah.
Hippolito is a wild card. Obviously, Ed Scott has a headlock, even though he's gotten more traditional.
Mhm.
And that's the thing is he I believe he got the
He's
Hidley
calmed
treatment.
down.
Yeah, he's gotten the Hidley treatment where the Hidleys are really good with underhooks, and everybody knew they were really good with underhooks. So the coaching staff forced them to wrestle without underhooks in the room and open up their offense. And I think that's kind of the same thing that I see with Ed Scott, where
Mhm.
he's really good with his headlock. I mean, he pinned a guy in the state finals with a headlock. I'll never forget that. I was literally Matt side for that. Um, but they've really gotten him to open up his offense. But the thing is he's got ebbs and flows throughout his entire career, including this year where he's had losses. And so this is going to be an interesting one, right? And the last time they wrestled was last year, and Hippolito won 12-7.
Mhm.
So
Hippolito's also coming off a loss last week to Jared
Yeah.
Evans from Pittsburgh. So, or Dylan Evans from Pittsburgh.
mhm.
And he's coming back off an injury and did not look himself last week. So, we'll see if another week of rest and being able to go full bore in the room pays a difference, because the guy that wrestled last week won't beat Ed Scott, but the guy that we've seen all year can.
The other one I want to get to is TJ Stewart versus Fishback. Fishback has 2 wins over him, 8-5 and 7-2. But the TJ Stewart that we saw, and mind you, both of those were last year, that we had seen those matches. They haven't hit at all at any of the tournaments this year. But TJ Stewart did not look like the same TJ Stewart that we had seen last year. I mean, he was lightning in that opening round of NCAAs. Like, that was insane. But he hasn't been the same guy this year, but he has as of late.
Mhm.
What have you seen from TJ Stewart that has changed things and kind of maybe shifted how he's been wrestling?
He's opened up again. In the beginning of the year, coming back off a knee injury,
Yeah, I was gonna say,
he
is he healthier now?
yeah, I mean well, I mean, just like anybody else, he's still dinged up because it's the nature of the beast.
Hmm.
But he's not tentative like he was all first semester. The first semester, he seemed like a completely different wrestler because he wasn't attacking, he wasn't opening up, he just was sitting back and hoping to win close matches, and that's not a style that works for him. The last few weeks, we've seen him be wide open. He's going for his upper body work that he's very successful work with. Um, he's putting a lot more points on the board and seems to be having fun again, which is important for him. I think mentally, for him to be in that position makes a huge difference for him. And Fishback's been it's tough all year. Like he's had some great wins and he's had some really head scratching losses. So I think TJ is will most likely dictate the pace of this match. And if he's able to get to his offense, I think TJ has the edge here based off of what we've seen from Fishback this year.
It's funny. I was trying to think of somebody who doesn't like having fun, like the opposite of TJ Stewart. I was like, Gilman. Thomas Gilman looks like he always needs to be mad at something.
Have you seen Caleb Henson wrestle?
Caleb, but I've seen Caleb smile.
He definitely having fun, but he doesn't.
He has
doesn't
fun,
look
though.
like he.
Yeah.
He's
Go
mean.
take a look at last week's show, the thumbnail for last week's show. The man's in a Spider-Man pose.
Yeah.
So he has fun.
Yeah.
He
But no,
enjoys beating on people.
Yeah.
watching TJ Stewart at I mean, he must have gotten into wrestling watching Vision Quest and been like, lat drops, sweet, that's all you need. Because like he's
Works
awesome
every
to watch.
time.
Yeah, it works every time. Yeah, he's awesome to watch, man. I'm pumped. I mean, this duel, I've got it written down here. I've got it 16-15. Just at my initial look, and with only bonus points coming from Henson at 49. But I've got it split 5-5. Like, it's going to be awesome.
Going through it the first time, I had it 17-15 in favor of Virginia Tech with bonus points from Latona and Henson. But I think that's the only bonus point potential I really see with any mismatches there. Maybe Trumbull over Mullen.
Maybe Trumbull. Yeah.
But Jimmy's been looking really good too. So I think that one's going to be a lower scoring heavyweight match.
Yeah.
But again, both of them are really dynamic and can put up crazy points. So, maybe that'll be a wide open match too.
Well, and that's the wild thing about this duel is like wherever there's potential for upsets at several weights, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you could, have 33 go either way, 57 go either. I mean, it could be a 7-3 match. It could be 5-5. It could be whatever. But it's going to be fun. It's going to be that. And somebody is going to win the ACC title this year.
Maybe 3 teams.
Maybe.
I think they should make them divide up the trophy and cut it into pieces.
Yeah.
The IWA did the same thing the ACC did this year, Robbie, and they were going to mimic how the ACC does it. They did co-champions, even though one team beat the other team. I was just like, does head-to-head not matter anymore? What's going on here? But
yeah, at least this year, like they can justify it because it would be like a round robin where they all beat each other.
Yeah.
But normally, like a couple years ago, somebody won it. I don't remember what it was. It was Virginia Tech won it, but they lost to NC State, or NC State won it, but they lost to Virginia. I don't remember. It was a weird.
They had to do a non-conference duel or something, right? And it didn't count.
Yeah, it was the COVID year, and they had too many people, so they weren't able to actually wrestle the duel. So it was counted as a forfeit, but then they came back and wrestled the duel again.
Yeah, that's right.
As a non-conference duel. I don't know. It was a weird year. I'd like to forget those 2 years of wrestling in general.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So who are we picking? Who are we taking to win the duel? Do we get a 3-way ACC championship tie, or does NC State just say we're still sitting at the top?
I got Hokies.
I like Virginia Tech too.
Yeah, I think the Hokies, I think they have the edge. Being at home, especially, I think that's going to give them a boost. But there's also a possibility of it just being a 2-way tie with NC State and Virginia Tech, because Stanford is going to give UNC a test the way they match up. So that's not a guarantee. Like I said, UNC's been in every duel, but it's going to be, Stanford matches up with them better than pretty much any other team does other than NC State. So I've got that one pretty close as well. The only thing working against Stanford there is forfeiting 25, but they have the horses to make up those forfeit points. So
yeah, they've got NCAA champion Lorenzo Norman.
Yeah, hopefully he wrestles this week.
that would help him win a title.
That would help.
Be a difference.
That would go a long way. I'm taking NC State. I'll stake the claim on NC State, so it's not a clean sweep of the board, and say NC State gets it done. But I mean, I love that there are multiple rivalries that happen, not just this weekend, but like that happen in the sport of wrestling, right? Like UNC and NC State in past years wasn't much of anything, right? I can remember being in North Carolina when NC State and UNC wrestled, and there was so much red in UNC's gym, it was crazy. So it's good that there's a lot more parity in the sport for sure.
They're turning
And
that tide though. There was
they are.
a lot more Carolina blue this year than there was Wolfpack red.
I mean, you got to build a fan base and do the right things. And Rutgers
Rob
certainly
Cole knows how to do
has
that.
that. He
Yeah,
definitely
Rob
knows how to
Cole.
do that. He definitely knows how to do that. Speaking of rivalries, the other one that everybody is talking about is Iowa versus Oklahoma State. It is the first time that David Taylor will take on the Brands as a head coach, and it's going to be close, just as close as NC State and Virginia Tech. Um, I wish I had the all-time record in here, but I don't. Um, but this is, I think, first of all, the big thing that everybody is looking at is that in the probables for Iowa, there is no Ferrari. So Ferrari is not listed in the Iowa probables.
He wasn't listed
How
in the Iowa State duel either.
exactly? How much stake do we put in that? Do we think and here's the thing, he has one more date left, and we had speculated before that this is where we would see him again, was up against Dustin Plott, allowing Gabe Arnold to not hit, essentially two of the top three guys in the weight class when coming up against them, and them throwing out Ferrari and allowing Gabe to what is it, load manage, so to speak. Um, what what do we think about that? I mean, Nelson Brands is back in there. He wasn't in there before for a couple other duels too. Nelson Brands is in as an or at 174 with Patrick Kennedy, but there is no or. It's just Gabe Arnold listed at 184. What do we make of that? And do we still think that we actually do see Ferrari? Kevin, what's your thoughts?
I don't think we see Ferrari. I think that they've talked about Arnold being the guy enough times, and I know last week and we talked about everything that happened with Penn State and everything else, but I just think at this point, especially with a guy who's coming off a couple losses in conference and even in the wins that he's had hasn't looked great, they're going to want to get him out there and get him the good competition because ultimately he's going to be their guy in March. And this Iowa team does still think they're going to be battling for a trophy, and they're going to want that guy battle tested, right? Would be my thought. Um, I don't know. I think that they're going to need to get that guy some more confidence, and win or lose, going out there and competing hard against Dustin Plott is going to be helpful with that. Did he wrestle last year against Oklahoma State? Hold on. I feel like he did. It was Iowa State. Bear with me. I'm looking it up
He
right
might
now.
have.
I think he
Might have.
did. Hold on.
I'm hesitant
No.
to.
Because
Maybe
he's a
that's
true
a plot.
freshman this year.
No, he's
He-
a redshirt freshman this year.
Yeah,
He
he
did.
wrestled a lot. He lost 5-1.
5-1. Yep, he wrestled Plot. So I stick with it. I think they're going to want to throw him back out there. Um, who knows? Maybe he comes away with a win. I mean, it's less likely than not, but those are the sorts of things that I think they're going to want to do with a guy who's hitting a slump right now.
Yeah. Austin, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think I agree with Claunch. I think they're gonna throw him out there, just turn off all outside noise, all the speculation, all the rumors, whatever you want to call it, all the chatter about Gabe Arnold versus Ferrari, who's better, who's not. Um, but part of me says, Brand said Ferrari isn't gonna wrestle cupcakes. I'm pretty sure Plot would fall into this category of not being a cupcake. So, and he has one date left, the stars kind of aligned for Ferrari, but I'm leaning more towards Arnold. He wrestled him close last year. It'd be a good gauge to see, how much Plot has improved, or if Arnold was kind of closing that gap there.
Robbie?
Um, I think it would be a poor choice to wrestle Ferrari. I think kind of what Kevin said. I think Gabe needs a good test, and this being the final week of the regular season, after relatively close matches throughout the Big Ten season, he needs some momentum going in, and a win over Dustin Plott would be huge. Um, but like Austin said, we don't know what he's going to do because they want to give Ferrari all these big matches. So, I mean, we could certainly see it. I don't think it would be a good choice. I think you need to wrestle your number ones in the final weekend, and barring any injury, just to end on a good note and be ready to go into the postseason.
Had we not seen Ferrari surprisingly be the only guy that weighed in at Penn State, I would say that there's no way he's wrestling here, right? If Gabe Arnold wrestles Carter Sirachi, you're like, there's no reason he's not wrestling Plot. I think I think we do see Ferrari. And the reason being is the opposite of the confidence builder that, the confidence building argument that you guys have of say, he hasn't wrestled very well this year. He's had very close wins. I mean, he went to overtime with Rogotsky. Um, he's had some very tough losses as well. You want him to be one as fresh. If you're sticking with the load management argument, you want him to be as fresh as possible. And you also you do want him to have confidence. Sending him out there to potentially lose again to Dustin Plot because he's not favored at all in this bout. To lose another match to Dustin Plot would not be the confidence builder for me, even if it is a close one. Last year he had nothing to lose. Last year it was the same situation that he was in with Ferrari. This year, he's wrestling tight and you can see it. And mostly because he's not just going out there trying to, assert his dominance on the 184-pound weight class. He's trying to assert himself in his own damn lineup. So he's wrestling tight and he's not looking his best week after week. And it's not resulting in good wrestling for him. And then there's ultimately not the best results for him. So that's why I feel like there's a potential that is greater than 50% of the probables not meaning a damn thing and us seeing Ferrari out there. Mostly because of how he wrestled Carter Sirachi. It's very hard to get to Ferrari's legs. Very hard. Carter Sirachi was only able to do it on reattacks. He couldn't use his own attacks to get there. And we broke that down mostly because of, Ferrari backing up and being on a knee the whole time. So kind of got to take
Minor
yeah.
detail.
Yes, but he's still very good defensively, very good in collar tie. So I think that we see Ferrari at 84. That's just my thought. But there's some other big matches that are potentially happening in this one. That where we can see some very tight matches, right? Like, 74 as well. Hamity versus Kennedy.
Mm-hmm.
Hamity has looked very good this year. I can't remember a time, maybe back to his freshman year, like early in his career, where he looked this confident in his wrestling and this free in his wrestling. Wrestling, he's
fun to
undefeated.
watch.
He's very fun to watch, and he's wrestling undefeated. I mean, who knew that another long and lanky 65, 74 pounder as a coach would work out well for a long and lanky 74 pounder, right? And then it's been some tough sledding for Keeter as well, and him against Wyatt Hendrickson. I think we'll see what Hendrickson is made of more so than Keeter, because Keeter, he was just teched in the first period by Gable. He does have a win over Ohio State, like when they wrestled Ohio State, but it hasn't been the easiest for him, right? So, what do you guys make of some of the matchups that I've thrown out there? And are there any other matchups that you can't wait to see in Iowa versus Oklahoma State?
Well, I have two questions about the lineup. And his first one is, are we going to see Teamer?
Mhm.
And the second one is, are we going to see Nelson Brands instead of PK? Um, and it'll be senior night for his, ninth year at Iowa, seventh year at Iowa.
Mhm.
So are they going to throw him out there for his final match in Carver?
He's been at Iowa his entire life. Let's be real. It's not
That's fair.
this
That's
year
fair.
24. All right.
Yeah.
So,
And two
uh,
doctorates.
yeah. I mean, the teamer is the biggest thing. Teamer is the biggest thing. Estrada has looked good when he's been out there and went
Mhm.
to overtime with Chumbley, but um, that's not who you need for that duel. Caleb Fish has had a good year. He's more than capable of getting on the podium. He's he's going to be tough for Teamer to beat, let alone Estrada. So I think that's the biggest thing for me. If Iowa's going to win this, they're going to have their full lineup, and they're going to need to get bonus points at 33 and 49. Because I got him winning 57. I got him winning. You know what I didn't realize? Cam Amin and Caliendo went to overtime last year at Big Tens. So
Mhm.
Their
that's kind of a
last two
toss up.
matches.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that's kind of a toss up too. I thought Caliendo had beaten him up pretty good, but I guess not. So um
And Amin wasn't wrestling his best last year either.
no, he was not. He's looked pretty good. Gotten bonus points a couple times this year, which was surprising and encouraging. So um but no, I have this one split 5-5 as well. I just have the bonus points at 33 and 49 winning it for Iowa in the end.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask that. I think I have it 5-5 too, but which matches and for who does get bonus points? Are
I
you,
think Ayala
I
and
would
Marco.
think so too, yeah, but does Hendrickson get bonus?
You
I
certainly
also
can. I think committee could get bonus points too,
And
I
that's
the
the
way
thing,
he's
yeah,
wrestled this
I can
year.
see that.
Well, that's the crazy thing. So, like, I have on my sheet here, Hendrickson gets 4, gets a major. He could tech him, he could pin him. We just watched it happen,
Mhm.
um, and maybe that's
Large
not fair to
farmer.
Keeter either, because like Gable's just doing that to everybody in the world,
Oh yeah.
So
So
is
it's like,
Hendrickson, though. Not to the same degree, but he's been incredibly dominant this year.
Yeah, he was
And he has
most
a
yeah,
way
dominant.
better
Yeah.
mustache.
yes. But I guess that's the other thing
Wow.
here though too, right? It's like you got to start thinking about. So I'm assuming 133 and 149 get majors for Iowa because that's part of the coaching and the specific game plan. You guys go put up points. We are going to need you here to win this. I'm assuming they're saying the same thing to Keeter, right? Like, hey, if you can keep this close, keep it close, right? Like, don't go to your back. Don't look for like just it's going to come up to you to hopefully not get majored or pinned or whatever to get this done. Um, I just think Iowa's gonna figure it out.
I think for Oklahoma State, obviously the big one is at 84, regardless of what Iowa does. But for them, points wise, 25 right off the bat's a big one. They
Mhm.
are probably going to need some bonus points from Spratley. Um,
Cruz has looked really good though
he
lately.
has. I love Joey Cruz. Absolutely
Yeah,
love that kid. Was a big fan of him when he was at Clovis North back in high school. Um, awesome kid. Definitely want to see his ascension. He's not there yet, but I think he can get there. Um, but I think Oklahoma State's going to need bonus from Spratley. Spratley's going to have to really be attacking. He's going to have to really, really put it out there. And then the other two spots that Oklahoma State is going to need bonus is from Hamity at 74 and definitely from Hendrickson at 285. Um, that's I don't think that Hamity gets bonus points against Kennedy. I think against Brands there's some potential there, only because we haven't seen Brands, so I don't really know what he's coming with. Right? There's no way of really knowing. Um, but I think Hendrickson tries to put it on Keeter. Like I think that I mean, this is I don't think he's ever wrestled in Carver either. So like I feel like he's just been out to just do whatever he possibly can to make this the best year that he
Soak it all
possibly.
up.
Yeah, like I gotta go and do this. Like I mean, essentially he got a special exemption to even go to Oklahoma State and make these things happen. He has
Making
to
it worth
make
his while. Yeah.
right, like he's got to make the most of it. He's got to soak all of it up in Carver. And the only other thing is, we talked about the kale tax. People get Carvered. You've seen it happen where guys just crumble in Carver Hawkeye, and Iowa guys thrive, other guys do not, right? And especially even, during this rivalry, it happens where guys do not show up. So I, I'm gonna stick with Iowa though. I think Iowa does pull this one out. It's 2 to 3 points that they do it. But if Oklahoma State gets the bonus points that they need, this could be ugly because I don't see Iowa getting the bonus points the same way that Oklahoma State can get bonus points. I think Oklahoma State can really blow this out of the water in terms of getting bonus points, not so much blow Iowa away, but in terms of getting bonus points where they need to get bonus points, they can. I mean, Hendrickson could end up with 5 or 6, right? Like that's very possible if he just goes out there and muscles his way through Keeter, who's still kind of getting his feet under him. Good wins, good losses, bad losses, still kind of getting his feet under him. So, but obviously it's all eyes on 84. And I think that at 84, regardless, it's a decision, but I think it's a closer loss for Dustin Plott if he wrestles Ferrari. How do you guys see this one shaking out? Who are you guys picking to win the duel?
I think if it's in a vacuum, neutral site, or even at Oklahoma State, I think Oklahoma State takes it. But that point you mentioned about just being at Carver, one of those matches that maybe might be leaning Oklahoma
It's a
State's way,
different energy.
it
It's a
might
different
it might
energy
get
to be on that
flipped.
It
floor.
So
is.
I think I have to take Iowa just because you mentioned it. Shit happens all the time at Carver. People crumble, stalling calls are maybe a little one-sided for Iowa's way, and that could be a difference in a toss-up match that.
The refs get Carvered more than anybody in
And
Carver.
yeah, I mean the whistle blows, the guy takes a step back, the fans are calling stalling already. It gets kind of crazy, but yeah, that's just that environment, and it's tough to come in there in a tight match and win all the close ones. So I think you gotta go advantage Iowa.
Kev, Robbie, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going the same. I got Iowa 17, Oklahoma State 16. I did start to panic a little bit, thinking about like, man, Tegan Jamison is awesome, and he could get bonus points at 41. Like that's a big gap.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But I just have enough faith in Joey Cruz. He's wrestled really well. I don't think he's going to beat Spratley, but I don't think he's going to get majored. I don't think that's going to happen at all. And then the only other thing I was thinking too, assume full health for both guys. I think I would rather have Nelson Brands than Patrick Kennedy in the lineup. Like I think I've seen Brands on the podium. I've seen Brands like dictate the pace of matches. I've seen Kennedy lose some weird ones from time to time. So it's not exactly the topic, but I was just thinking about that. I'm like, no, you know what? I think I would. I've decided I would rather have Nelson Brands, assuming he's healthy, than Patrick Kennedy.
You think he keeps it closer with Hamity?
I think he's a more consistent force in general.
I would agree.
So
I definitely think he would be the better option against Hamity to slow him down. I think defensively he's less of a liability and less prone to getting large scores put up on him.
Yeah, we've seen him be stingy. Yeah.
Yeah. I think what it hinges on for me is Teamer and if Teamer goes or not. Um, I think it's a 5-5 split. I think I don't know, with the points that I've seen Oklahoma State put up this year, it's hard for me not to lean towards them right now. Um, and with the health questions with Teamer, I think I'm gonna lean with Oklahoma State here to outdo it on bonus points to put up one more bonus point than the Hawkeyes do.
And what if like Cam wins? Like he could win that
Yeah,
match. He's wrestled in Carver before.
that would be a huge win. Caliendo's been damn good this year.
Mhm.
I mean, again, it comes back to how much stake do we put in the probables, right? Like I say not much, but then you look at 57 and you're like, okay, maybe because at 57, Teamer's the only one listed. At
Hmm.
74, or excuse me, at 84, Arnold's the only one listed. However, I think that we see Ferrari and not Arnold here, whereas we could see Estrada at 57, who's been in the lineup. I think, again, back to transparency of injury reports and stuff like that, but like how healthy is Teamer?
And are they willing to risk that for a non-conference duel the week before postseason?
Mhm. Very, very true. So we're all taking Iowa though, huh?
No, I'm going to
No,
Oklahoma State.
you've Oklahoma State.
I'm going to Oklahoma State.
It's funny looking at the wrestle stat common opponents for 157. Ja'Cory Teamer and Caleb Fish each have Peyton Robb as a common opponent. Ja'Cory Teamer wrestled Robb in 2019, 6 years ago, and he still has it's crazy.
Oh man, that's crazy. That is wild. All
Hmm.
right, so rivalry weekend. It will be tons and tons of fun. Before we wrap things up, Austin, what do we have in the EIWA? We'll kind of go around the horn. What other things we have going on outside of these rivalries? Austin, EIWA, and Ivy. What do we got?
We were just talking rivalries. Figured I'd speak on one of the greatest ones, I think. Army versus Navy. Army came away with that
Hmm.
one this year. They won 10 of or 7 of the 10 bouts, but the ones that they won were all decided within the last minute. They were all it was a really close match. Scoreboard may not indicate it, but
Did
not sure.
Wolfgang win?
Wolfgang, I think he did win. Yes.
Mhm.
Did Gunner win?
Gunner,
I think he did as well. From what
That's
I
fantastic
I
names.
think he
All
did
name
win.
team.
Yeah.
Good job, Army.
We will have
Yeah.
an all name team at the end of the year. We'll have to do it.
Especially Gunner. I mean, wrestling for
yeah.
Army doesn't get any better than that. But yeah, really cool event. At halftime, Coach Ward got $1 million endowment from the class of 1972.
That's awesome.
I kind of talked to him on the phone about some of that stuff, just, how cool that rivalry is, the atmosphere of that match. And the main thing he brought away was, this duel actually means something. He's kind of joking around with me, the sport has kind of gone into a place where we care about 3 days out of a 5 day season or a 5 month season, excuse me. So this is just a really cool rivalry, a really cool duel, and watching it on flow, really cool atmosphere, great commentating, just the energy was really, really cool. But so congrats to Army Black Knights, a lot of cool stuff going on there. Um, this weekend, Lehigh wrestles Arizona State tomorrow at Lehigh. Um, Not a whole ton going on in the EIWA. Drexel hosts Maryland. Could be some good matches there.
Mhm.
Main thing I'm looking out for on my end is and I made a tweet about at the F&M Invitational. Going to see a lot of local teams put in some guys to either up their RPI, up their win percentage, what have you. Interested to see who they enter at 133. If that's going to be Lopes, that would be his sixth state, which would take away his red shirt. If they put in Crookham, obviously it means he's going to be back for EIWAs and he'll be healthy. So those entries should be coming in any day now. So I'll keep you guys posted on what I hear there. But um, yeah, then Ivy Leagues, Penn just wrestled Rutgers, had him on the ropes and lost the last 5 matches to lose that one. They won the first 4, so they're wrestling pretty well. They just kind of beat down Princeton on Sunday. And then yeah, that's pretty much all I got. Pretty light week this week for duels.
Yeah. Robbie, ACC.
UNC heading out to Stanford. There's gonna be some fun ones there. Lachlan McNeil, Jade Navis will be a good match. Um, that'll be a good duel, kind of up and down. Tyler Knox, Ethan Oakley will be a good match as well. Tyler Knox has been super impressive this year. Really fun to watch, putting up lots of points. And then Pitt is at Virginia. Um, big one there is Cedeno and Solomon. No, yes, no. I'm losing my
Santiago.
mind. Hold on, let me look at my sheet. Santaniello, that's right. Solomon and Jack Giaffrey, hopefully. That's what I'm thinking. They've had some crazy illnesses going through the UVA lineup, and it's really made it difficult to know who's going to be starting because they don't know who's going to be healthy at any given point. So I'm hopeful that they have a semblance of their full lineup back. Um, but some good ones to watch there. Maxed Out has been incredibly impressive, won 17 straight, and will be favored here. Hopefully, we're seeing Reese Heller back as well after coming off an injury. But yeah, couple fun duels. All three of the duels should be relatively close, so be a nice competitive way to end the ACC season.
Awesome. Kevin, I'm pretty sure I know where you're gonna end up with this one, but go ahead.
Um, does it involve Michigan schools?
All of them, yes.
Yeah. Michigan State wrestles Central Michigan on Friday. It is senior night for the Chippewas, so I'm very excited. They've got Alex Kramer, Johnny Lovett, as like two of their main guys who are going to be gone. I think Cameron Woods is senior. He's been in and out of the lineup at 197. But I mean, those are the two main guys. Those guys have been key contributors in their lineup for a while. So, and I think they can beat Michigan State this year. So, State's, they're not doing great.
Yeah.
They just lost actually to Michigan on Sunday at home. So that was, I think they're winless in the Big Ten this year. And so, but yeah, then Central Michigan travels to Ann Arbor on Sunday to wrestle the Wolverines there. So that'll be fun. I hopefully will be down there calling that one. So looking forward to that. And but yeah, other than that, there's not a whole ton of crazy action going on. Penn State wrestles American.
Mhm.
American gonna pull it off.
Shock the world, guys. Nebraska and Purdue on Sunday. That's going to be actually on Big Ten Network. So yeah, Sunday they actually do back-to-back duels. Nebraska at Purdue, followed by the Oklahoma State Iowa duel. So
There should be some fun matchups in the Nebraska duel.
yeah, well, you'll get the Caleb Smith and
Ramos.
Ramos match.
That should
157
be
with
good.
Taylor
Yeah.
and Blaze should be good. So yeah, there'll be some good matches there.
Nice. For me, I'm just gonna I just want to give a shout out to UNI
Yeah.
because they do amazing work. Selling out last week, great atmosphere for senior day. They beat Iowa State, I believe it was what 26-10. Um, good way to kind of send Kekheisen, off and onto what could potentially be another NCAA championship. Um, this weekend they face off against Wisconsin to finish out the dual season, but just like the things that you and I does. I mean, I've always been a big Roper fan, always been a big Schwab fan. Every time I see Schwab, he's always, it's always awesome to talk to him and his wife. Um, and I love how he has just really just built that fan base into what it is. And they've done it with, grit, good wrestling, just like tons of hard work, putting out good videos, and then he has his pressers during the week. And, at this point in time, he takes the time to not even talk about his team, but like kind of open up about his family and talk about his sons. And, so Schwab's always been a great guy. I think anybody would be lucky to wrestle for Doug Schwab. If he is showing you any sort of attention on the recruiting trail, definitely look long and hard at that offer, because you see what kind of product he puts out on the mat and what kind of human he is, right? So had to give them props, and him as well as Keckeisen, who has been phenomenal this whole season. He's got, I'm looking at his wrestle stat right now, he's got 2 regular decisions on the year, one of them against Plot in the Cliff Keen final. The other one was the first match of the year against Bennett Berge. He beat him 8-3. He went on to major Bennett Berge later on in the season, but everything else has been bonus points. So there's been only 2 regular decisions in throughout his entire season this year. So he's having a great season. Another guy that is, should be part of that Hodge talk. But yeah, UNI, major props to them. Wish I was wearing my UNI shirt to give them props maybe next week. But yeah, just another really good building season for them. And it was awesome to see the really cool picture of Keckeisen walking out of the tunnel, and you just see the bowl just completely filled with fans. So awesome for them. But yeah, just excited for rivalry weekend. Going to be watching out for a lot of these. Talked to Eddie Santiago about his son Sonny literally earlier on today. They're actually going to be driving to the duel, I believe. I think they're taking a good amount of people up to Stanford to watch him in the final duel of the year. So
That'll be a
should be
fun match
awesome.
too.
It should be a really fun
In
match. Yeah,
Interlochen.
he's pretty excited to. I think they were just in UNC last week for senior night, but then they're gonna take the trip, make that drive. I think it's like said it's like a 4 hour drive for them. They're gonna pile into. I think they've got like a van or something that they're piling into, like a really big van to pile into and go watch that. So pretty cool. Love the Santiago family. They're awesome to me. They're really nice to me. I talk to him all the time, and it's gonna be another awesome weekend of wrestling, fellas. We're nearing that time where it's that 3 days that everybody really really trains for and that everybody really focuses on. But this entire year has been filled with a lot of parity, and it's been awesome. And next week we'll talk conferences. We'll do a recap of how things went this week. Hopefully there is no inconsistencies in the refereeing, but I'm not holding my breath on that one. But yeah, should be fun. If Iowa wants to, I mean, we know how tough it is for Iowa to pat Carver, super tough. But if they really want to pat Carver, they bring in Super Bowl champion Cooper DeJean, and they honor him for winning the Super Bowl this year during the Iowa duel. That's exactly what they should do. So yeah, that's all I got. You guys got any shout outs or anything else before we close up? No shout
Fire up
outs.
Chips.
There you go.
I'll just say I was at the
Matt.
Eagles parade, and that was quite a crazy time. Over 1 million people there.
Yeah.
It was wild. I saw some crazy stuff going on, but yeah, go ahead, Kevin.
I was just gonna say CMU was MAC West champs. Official first year under Ben Bennett. He wins the MAC West, so that's exciting, and they've got some momentum. Hopefully after a win over Michigan State this weekend, and then headed to the MAC championships. So
Sounds like a telephone company from the 80s, Mac West.
like Ameritech.
Nice. Yeah, Robbie, when you said maxed out before, I thought you said maxed out, and I was like, man, that would be awesome for maxed out to have shirts that just said maxed out across them. That's exactly what he needs. Speaking of things that sound like other things, when you said that, I was like, did he just say maxed out? Nope, talk about maxed out.
I like it. I like
I
it.
think that's get him on the phone. We need to, I want 5% of the earnings is all I want
I
for
will
that
I will
NIL
see
deal.
them tomorrow night. They're coming in tomorrow, so I'm gonna go down and watch their workout.
Tell him
Tomorrow
he
night at
needs to do
UVA.
that.
So
Yeah.
I
With
will
two
let
two
him know.
two X's though.
Got it.
Maxed out.
Maxed out.
Yep, that's exactly what it needs to say. Print the t-shirts. I want them in every color.
Get Fretball on the phone.
He's
On the
yeah.
back, it says 665-pound deadlift, baby.
Oh, and on that note, we are closing out. Gentlemen, as always, it's fun to talk wrestling with you guys. Appreciate all of the comments, even the ones saying that I talk too much. And bring those comments, keep the likes and all that other fun YouTube stuff coming. And we'll see you again next week.